Hey PC gamers, and welcome back to the PC Gamer Chat Log. I am Lauren Morton, and I'm here with Mollie Taylor.
Hi everyone!
And this week we talked with our resident Witcher expert, one of our Witcher experts, but
like
definitely our foremost Witcher fan for sure.
Yeah.
Combination of Witcher fan and expert. Our guides editor, Lauren Aitken. And don't worry, she sounds very different than me. We have very different accents, so you'll be able to tell the Laurens apart. That will not be a problem, I promise you, even though we have double Laurens this week. But before we get into talking about The Witcher Season 3, the start of it, it has the first volume of episodes has premiered. So we've watched a bit of that. Well, you know, some of us have watched more than others. Lauren has certainly seen all of it. And this Lauren, the Lauren you are hearing from currently, has seen slightly less of it. But we've got thoughts on where Season 3 is heading and Henry Cavill and some of the plot points we're getting into. But before we start talking about that and bring Lauren on with us, Mollie, what did you do last week?
Yeah, so it's a bit of a secret podcast intro this week. It's a very I was playing something that I can't talk about. We both did, in fact. We played a little bit.
We were both playing a game that we cannot talk about. You will hear about it as soon as we can.
Yes.
But unfortunately right now, it has to wait.
Yes.
Did you do anything else? Or did we both just play that all last week? Oh no.
I pretty much lost my life to it last week. If I was playing something, I was playing that because I fell into like the little gameplay loop very easily. Anyway, can't say anything more than that. We are NDAs are amazing. We love them. But yes, as soon as we can tell you about it, we will. But apart from that, I mostly I watched TV this week. I watched a lot of TV.
Mm-hmm.
New
TV. You watched some Witcher to keep up with us.
I did.
First of all,
I watched some Witcher, and our guides writer Sarah James, who's been on this podcast before, recommended Ted Lasso to me.
Okay.
Yeah, I watched the first 2 seasons of that. And
first 2 seasons.
I watched the first 2 seasons in like 4 days. 3 days. I watched the first 2 seasons in 3 days. I am hooked. So have you seen Ted Lasso?
No, I just hear about it all the time.
It is.
Everyone says it's excellent. I see clips occasionally.
It is one of those shows that I feel like is appropriately hyped, right? Yeah. Like there's a lot of shows that are overhyped, a lot of shows that are underhyped. Ted Lasso is like appropriately hyped. I know it's not gaming. It's you know, a game. It's a sports game.
Steam Summer Sale is still ongoing. Have you made any Summer Sale purchases, by the way?
I did. I bought Dragon's Dogma, Dark Arisen.
Oh, did you? Oh, shoot. We talked about Dragon's Dogma recently when we had Robin on this podcast.
Yeah, we did. And
how much is Dragon's Dogma on sale for?
Dragon's Dogma is like less than £4, like $4 right now. Probably less than $5.
Shoot. Yeah, it is. It's under $5, and whatever the Dark Arisen Masterworks is that like including DLC or something?
I think Dark Arisen.
Oh no, that's
like
a digital soundtrack. Edition. Okay. Oh. Well, anyway, yeah, Dragon's Dogma is less than $5, so I guess I'll grab that too, huh?
Yeah, it's less than $5. Robin was telling me I had to play it.
Yeah,
my boyfriend really likes it. He was telling me I should play it. So, well, Robin was saying that we should both play it. In a podcast a few weeks ago. So I did actually buy that and fully intend on playing it, but I need to get through Final Fantasy 16 first and finish that. So that is what I did this week. What did you do this week, Lauren?
Nice. I also played the same secret game as you that we can't talk about. Can't wait to tell everybody more about that when we have the chance. What did I do? So I have not made any Steam sale purchases yet, other than I guess now I'm about to buy Dragon's Dogma. My partner bought Cyberpunk 2077 for the first time actually, and I think has spent like 30 hours over the past 3 days playing this game over the weekend.
Oh wow.
Just totally mainlined it. So I never did wind up playing Cyberpunk, but there has been I've been witnessing cyberpunk in my household for sure. And I watched a few episodes of The Witcher to talk about The Witcher here with you and Lauren. But yeah, that's it. I don't want to say no lifed, but I did pretty much exclusively play our currently secret game, unfortunately. So
I
oops.
think we have a lot to say about it, so
Yeah.
it'll be
That'll be good when the time comes
yeah,
later into the summer, I believe.
for
So
sure, for sure. How much is Cyberpunk right now on Steam?
oof. Good question. I did not administrate this purchase.
I am also a non-Cyberpunk player. I started my job here
It
right
is.
after it released.
Oh yeah, you missed the
Yeah, I
big
I
cyberpunk
narrowly
time.
avoided it.
It is currently 50% off for $30,
Oh,
which
maybe like
is, hold on.
24.99.
Let me find that in pounds with my browser extension. That is 25 pounds. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, maybe it's time. Maybe it's time.
From what I've been hearing, from my expert across the hall, is I think he's been having a good time, but I think some of the weird stuff is still there. Like he's
Yeah,
been complaining
considering.
about like reloading fights, I think, and enemies being like in different spots, like reloading into an encounter
Mm,
and it being totally jumbled, and like some of the AI still being like pretty wonky. So
ugh.
I don't know. I think your mileage may vary on
There are some
Cyberpunk
big
still
base
to this
game.
day.
Yeah, there are some big base game overhauls on the horizon though,
Hmm.
right? With
Yes, there
the new
are.
DLC. So
Hmm.
maybe picking it up on sale now and then kind of holding off.
Wait.
Yeah, holding off
You weren't
till
going to get to
the
it immediately anyway, right? Unless you
definitely
do.
not. No. So maybe I'll pick it up while it's a little cheaper and then once those base game overhauls come in, I'll give it a go.
Hmm. Fair enough. Well, good luck with all of your own summer sale purchases if you make them, and any other games you may secretly be playing. I don't know why you would be keeping games a secret if you don't have to, like we do. So, um, awesome. I guess let's go get Lauren Aiken, and bring her in here to regale us with her knowledge of The Witcher. Okay, Lauren, we have brought you in as our foremost Witchering expert. Like you are the premier Witcher fan on this team, I think.
Geralt of trivia, I'm the only one on the PC Gamer forums, apart from Stevie, that has a little tagline, and that's what mine says. My credentials are
Yeah.
Jerry, Signs, Yen, Siri. It's all there. So
Yeah, for people that are listening and not watching, Lauren has like a whole ass Witcher tattoo
Sleep.
sleeve. Yeah, a whole Witcher sleeve. She's got the Witcher dress on today and everything. Like, you should be watching this video because you should be watching it, not listening this week because Lauren is Witchered the fuck out.
it's a whole
Lauren,
lot.
is that sleeve exclusively Witcher stuff?
Yes.
That whole arm?
Like,
Oh,
and my mug
nice.
also matches my hand tattoo, if you really want to know. It's the Witcher medallion from the show, so here we are.
So, are you a fan of The Witcher then,
Me?
Lauren?
No.
Is,
Never
is
even
that
heard of a Gerald. Who?
This is a recent interest of hers. She's actually like retconned herself with the tattoo sleeve.
It's in my lore now. I am. Get over it. It's fine.
So we are coming together to talk a little bit about, we'll be light on spoilers, the first what are they calling it, the first set of episodes
The first volume.
for season 3 volume. We just
volume?
add in more words for collecting things together. The first volume of the 3rd season of the Witcher television show on Netflix. So yeah, how, Lauren, you know everything. You've read the books. You are well invested in the games. So, and you have watched definitely all of this first volume. Mollie, what have you seen so far? What is your Witcher history?
So I have a little bit of a confession, just a little confession. I am not a huge Witcher fan. It's not that I dislike The Witcher. I'm just apathetic, right?
You've played the games, or like the third one, Witcher 3,
I
right?
have played some of the third game. I haven't
Okay.
finished it, because I was like, oh my god, even for me, this is a very like dense RPG.
Very fantasy
Um,
ass fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's very fantasy ass fantasy. There is a lot in it as well. And I was at university at the time and I was like, oh my god, I cannot dedicate my time to this. So I put some hours into The Witcher 3 and I watched the first 2 episodes of this season for this episode of the podcast, and I also read some of Lauren's fantastic Witcher season 2 recaps, which, if you're a bit like me, you kind of just want to jump straight into season 3, I would highly recommend you go and read those over on pcgamer.com because they are fantastic. But that is my exposure to The Witcher, which is to say, not a lot.
No.
That's okay. I can be right in the middle then. And also Lauren has a review of this season up on the site as well, so you can recap and read the review, and somewhere in the middle of there actually watch the show for sure. I am like a middle Witcher person. I have played all 3 games. I have a soft spot and I will stick up for that first game no matter how horrible
The
the first
jankiest
Witcher
of all,
game.
yes. A quality story,
Yeah,
but
it
the
is.
jankiest of everything.
It is the jankiest of everything, and I don't know, maybe I'm getting stubborn in my middling years where I'm like, no, it's fine that it's old and janky because so am I. But
Yep.
I have been watching the show as it's come out. So I watched season 1. I participated in the toss your coin to your Witcher phenomenon, being obsessed with it. I watched season 2. I am currently, as of recording, 3 episodes into this volume, this set of episodes. I suspect I will probably be watching the next 2 this evening because I am watching it with my partner who's also been invested in watching it with me. So I'm middlingly caught up on Witchering at the moment. And one thing I guess that I wanted to ask you about, Lauren, is like lore change stuff. This is like a hot topic among fans, right? How much we care about changing the lore. And I just happened to spot in your review, because I do not remember details well from this stuff. I'm so bad with television. If I need to read the Witcher books, is the reality. I haven't read them,
Mhm.
but if I would read the books, I would remember the lore so much better than watching this TV show and even than playing the games. But you pointed out like there were some small details, like one of them about Radovid being Visimir's brother
Mhm.
instead of his son, right? And is that like a big change, do you think?
For how I know the story goes, no, it's still following a canon event, shall we say.
Mm-hmm.
But for the show, it does make sense for him to be the brother rather than the son, because as you would expect in the books, there's way more Vigo characters, way more children, way more problematic deceit. So there's enough deceit, there's enough subterfuge, there's enough backstabbing and everything in The Witcher and the TV show as it is. So simplifying it down to brother just makes it a nice little slot in, because obviously Dijkstra and Philippa have to work with him closely, and Vizimir just goes, look after my brother now, he's a part of this. It shoehorns in well. It would have made it, there'd have been too much fluff, I think, to include him as the son would have been the main problem, because there's other siblings, there was other things at play, and I think they're
Okay.
going for a slightly different Radovid from what I can kind of digest from it. Obviously, in the books, in the game, he was Radovid the Seren and kind of Radovid the Mad King. He was very an unhinged character, and there's seeds of that being sown. Obviously, the one we're seeing is the Playboy hot prince. I'm going to throw that out. Never mind Henry Cavill now, where Radovid stands. Like,
Uh-huh.
he's just a delicious looking little prince. But how they're going to evolve him in the next season will be really, really key, because, well, not to give away anything, there's some big changes that they stick to with the book, and it's canon with the books and the game. But obviously, the game had a slightly different canonical Radovid. The books has got true canon, but then this variation, what they've done in season 3, it's true enough to the book with a little bit of embellishment that it flies. It's not something that would be, that watching it, I knew immediately, I was like, that's not his brother, but it doesn't detract so much that I'm thinking you've completely changed that character. Yeah. It's a good change, I think, for television.
It's like
Now I'm-
convenience.
Yeah. To like
easy.
to distill the story and the relationships that you've got together, sort of, you're saying.
Yep.
And now I'm realizing I should back up because I was like, I just want to ask Lauren lore questions, but actually just like a quick recap, I guess, of what's going on in this season. Like Yennefer and Geralt and Ciri are together trying to find a place to be like keep Ciri safe, right? What else do we have going on in like the early setup?
So towards the end of season 2, Yennefer obviously basically started the war with the Northern Kingdoms with Nilfgaard. She freed Cahir. Everyone's angry at her. The Northern Kingdoms are all raging. The mages, the Brotherhood of Sorcerers, they're all raging with Yennefer. She obviously tried to betray Ciri and Geralt. They're raging with Yennefer. Basically, everyone's angry at Yennefer, and Yennefer now has to atone. So, if we kind of even just look at our lovely little trio, Ciri, Geralt, and Yen. Geralt was obviously soulishly stinky witcher, kind of became dad, and is now going to embrace full daddom. He's gone full daddy. Yennefer's went from selfish to, oh, I've lost all my powers and I'm sad and I'll do anything to get them back. And now this is her entering motherhood. So we've got fatherhood, true fatherhood for Geralt, true motherhood for Yennefer, and then you've still got Ciri, who's just the annoying teenager who won't accept herself for having all this massive power. And everyone else is now basically scheming. The continent is at war. Emir's got the upper hand. He's got the elves. He's got the Scoia'tael. But Francesca hates humans. You know, she's the leader of the elves, and she's got her own contest with Gallatin coming up, who's the leader of the Scoia'tael, kind of the squirrels, your guerrilla warfare group of the elves.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got the Northern Kingdom. So you've got Vizimir and Dijkstra and Philippa are the kind of main drivers for the Northern Kingdom up in Redania. And the mages are the other ones. Obviously, we kind of sowed the seeds at the end of season 2 that there's a mage who's in control of the voiceless women in Rien's, the rogue mage with the fire, and it's going to be discovered who that bad guy is. But other mages, other sorceresses have got their own kind of agenda, and that's the kind of key theme. On the one hand, you've got the idea of family, but the other one is a line that Dijkstra utters that, you know, neutrality is not an option. Neutrality won't get you a statue. You have to pick a side, and that's the kind of theme that runs through the whole of this season: is pick a side. Kind of ultimately, you know, as a Witcher, Geralt will never pick a side that's not his own, but his side is Ciri. So that's where canonically this is about to take us into Geralt no longer really being a Witcher and more being Ciri's protector and father and searching for her, and Yennefer and her journey for motherhood and protection, and then everyone else is just going to fight. That's the basic. That's the Witcher forever. But yeah, that's it's set us up to move away quite nicely from Geralt and away from Henry Cavill. I suppose looking at the next season, it's already been teased by the producers that they want to go for. They're going to jump ahead a few books and do the Lady of the Lake transition for Henry and Liam, which is essentially Geralt and Yen get very badly wounded. They go to an island where it's got healing properties, and when he wakes up, he's got no memories. So the start of The Witcher 1, essentially, when he wakes up with no memories, that's what they're going to do to have the Henry and Liam transition. It's much suited.
So this is a story we already know from the books and from like the setup for the first Witcher game, right?
Yeah,
which is a nice segue. So
yeah, that seems nice, because for people who, I assume if you're listening to this podcast, you will know, but Henry Cavill is no longer the Witcher after this season, right? He is leaving. He is no longer Geralt. Liam,
but the show goes on.
The show goes on.
The show goes on. Liam Hemsworth is taking his place, right?
With much
and like you said,
we wait.
Like you said, Lauren, they're doing that in like quite a lore specific way, right? They said they're gonna
lore accurate, I think was the term they used, which is, and
lore accurate.
I kind of guessed that they would do that. That was if you'd asked me to hedge my bets before this season came out, I would have said that. So the fact that they've come out kind of now that we know that Henry, well, this is Henry's final season, for them to come out and say, oh yeah, we're definitely going to try and look at it that way. I was like, it was the easiest way to do it. It was right there, ready for the taking. So
yeah,
it's just
man loses his memories and suddenly his face is different. It tracks somehow.
It gets that badly injured. Like, they do get that badly injured in the story that it does 100% make sense that it has to be like completely, like he gets butchered. So if he gets butchered beyond recognition, for him to wake up looking like another guy, the door is open.
Lucky him to get butchered and then wake up looking like Liam Hemsworth.
Looking like a handsome Australian man. I know, right? I wish someone would pummel me until I look like a handsome Australian
Absolute
man.
goals.
I would love that.
So we start off this first episode like with them searching for a place to keep Siri safe, and we're doing some very like, you know, family relation rehab type
family.
stuff. Yeah. Everybody coming to terms with each other again. I guess, how are we feeling about everybody's relationships with each other? Have they been relatable? Have they been rough? I have feelings, but I want to know what you guys think.
I have a lot of feelings. I have a lot of like, oh, I've been there. I hate that one. Yeah. Seeing Yennefer being a massive simp is uncomfortable. I think is the best way to describe that, because she was so arrogant in the first season, and then so downtrodden and miserable in the second. For her to be this lighter, kind of initially lighter, comforting, and then the dear friend letters, like they're peppered throughout the books, and you know the beginning of The Witcher 3 opens with a dear friend letter, and that's a nice little touch. I'm glad they went with that narration, because it does show that love she has for Geralt, but obviously that love came from the Djinn, so this season seems to be very much testing their love again as well, of is it real or is it just magic binding them together. But that's a long lasting kind of tale, but it's a traditional little nuclear family, isn't it? Big angry dad, child who's a pain in the arse, and then mum that's just like, I will keep this family together by any means necessary. So
Yeah, I
nothing
will.
new
I will
about
do
it,
the
but at
best
the
I
same
can.
time,
I liked that scene where they were all sat at the table, and like Yen and Siri look like the normal size of a human to be sat at that furniture, and then
Yeah.
and then Geralt just looks like a giant in comparison to the two of them. Like he looks so uncomfortable in that chair. But I actually quite liked that opening as well, because even as someone who hasn't seen the other seasons, but I have a vague idea of, you know, the story and the games, I feel like those letters did really help to like give you a good idea of where they were already at, right? And then, you know, the visuals were focusing more on like Yen and Ciri like learning, like helping to teach Ciri like how to use her powers and stuff, right? So I really liked that opening. It was a nice opening. But I wasn't expecting some of like the language to be
Oh yeah.
what it was, right? Because all these like little letters are getting sent, and there's all this like tension between Yen and Geralt, and then that guy is just like, "Oh, you two are fucking again, right?" And
Yeah.
I was like, "What?" I was like, "This is far too 2023 for my like silly little fantasy game show, even."
I like you said, Lauren, seeing Yennefer come into that role of now just sort of being very apologetic, being very conciliatory with Geralt, like, I know I screwed up. I hope you forgive me. Writing him these like, you know, dear friend letters is certainly a change for her. And Ciri's disposition here is also sort of different. I mean, she's gone through being very um, stubborn, but not like in her own power in that first season. And then in the second season, we see her start to sort of make her own decisions. And now she's going to keep making even more of her own decisions for better, but mostly for worse so far. Like, she's sort of screwing up, and Yennefer is having to give her some mom speeches about, you know, consequences and idealism, and her like she's already butting heads with, I think, both of them, with Geralt and Yennefer, about the price of idealism, I guess. And she doesn't believe that it's necessarily doomed, I guess. She's not as fatalistic as they are, but they both just keep giving her examples of like things going horribly when sticking to ideals, which I guess is kind of very Geralt, who, like you said, Lauren, is more passive and like tries to just stay out of that stuff and have his own ideals, but not anybody else's, maybe.
yeah, like they both take on a really classic parent role, and kind of not to get all that way, but being a parent myself, of course I have an idea of what is best for my son, and they have an idea for knowing what Ciri's destiny could be because of the prophecy. They have their own idea about what will constitute safety for her, or maybe stability, or how to help best guide her. But you have to keep in mind she's a princess, so her canonical destiny should be queen, or you know, queen consort, whatever else. So there's kind of discussions all around that she should become this all-powerful mage, she should become a witcher, she should just be a queen eventually and let this incredibly powerful queen rule the Northern Kingdoms. Obviously that's not going to happen because everyone's got their own agenda for her, but I think what's interesting, the whole premise, the opening premise of episode 1 is Yen wants to be trusted. Geralt, trust me with your most prized possession, which is Ciri. Trust me, trust me, trust me. I can earn it back. You can both trust me. And yet, Geralt's trying to ask the same thing of Ciri, but both of them are blindly leading Ciri into danger. Like, I know why Yen will think in her head that Aretusa is going to be a safe place to take Ciri, but realistically, you're sitting there going like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You're going to take her into the place where you freed a prisoner and tried to set up, like, you know, there was so much fire and everything everywhere where you're not respected. You're going, and you know, being a mage herself, she knows how backstabby and twisted and everyone's in each other's pockets it is. To take Ciri there, it's just like, duh, it's the stupidest idea. It's the stupidest thing, but they both go with it because they're trying to view it through a lens of, well, we'll be there and we can protect her, but
Yeah.
I feel like that lesson's not been learned, that you've been there and you couldn't protect her at different points. Like, it's just, yeah, that blindsided, you know, parental view of what I decide is best and I'll make it work, and you're just like, no.
If I'm there, I can control it and I can make
Exactly.
sure nothing goes wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah, like you said, Aretusa is backstabby on a good day, let alone when Yennefer is coming back and people have
Exactly.
beef with her. And if they can't beef with her directly, who are they gonna mess with? Yennefer, your daughter, the first person you have cared this much about in your entire life. So that I will say some of those I don't remember if this is in episode 2 that it gets into it, Molly, so you may or may not have seen the parts yet of like Yennefer sort of lecturing Ciri once they get to Aretusa, and that whole conversation of like, this is who I have to be here. Like I understand you've never seen this side of me and you don't like it, but this is who I have to be, and you need to be whoever you're going to be to fit in here. And that something about that particular conversation, the pragmatism and the like, I'm sorry that I'm hurting you, but I can't not because of the circumstances, was particularly painful. Like that. Oof, got me in the heart.
That was a tough one. It was the other one, my ugly one, and it was obviously, that's a throwback to Tissaia calling her Piglet. Obviously when she was an ugly novice, and you know that was Yen's very subtle way of being like, when you get to Aretusa, it's going to be hard because everyone's a dick and you have to get used to it. But it's hearing that when the mages find her and trying to go get her to get the wine, and they're just abused inside, because that's what it is. And obviously they abuse their novices, and we saw that in season 1, the kind of hell Yennefer goes through to become a mage. But deeply uncomfortable. And but then it cuts away and Ciri leaves and suddenly finds Geralt on the Wild Hunt, and it was just such a random insertion of the Wild Hunt being like, we're still following you, and she thinks they're ghosts. Having seen them at the end of season 3, she thinks they're ghosts. She's like, spectres can't hurt me, and then they find that a bit of armour is fallen off or whatever, and they're like, oh, they're real, and then they never mention them again, apart from one throwaway comment, and you're just like, whoa, why? Why did they have to appear? I know it's supposed to be like a continuous bad omen, but it was just such a, oh, I've left Aretusa, I found the Wild Hunt, I found Jerry, but now we're going to go back, and that was that. And you're like, well, also it ends well. It was just such a random bit.
Put a pin in it. Don't forget the Wild Hunt. We're going to circle back for that
They'll
at
be
some
back.
point. Just don't forget it's there.
So weird. But
let's see. I started off and then I pulled us back from the whole like Radovid bit. How are we feeling about Prince Radovid at this particular moment? Because Molly, you've seen some of the good scenes with him so far in those first couple episodes. Him being more than he seems, right?
Yeah. I saw a little bit of it. I was like half watching it at this point. Because I was so confused as to what was going on, which, you know, is kind of, it's a little bit on me, right? I'm sorry, there are so many stupid names in this show.
Redhead Prince, the one who is
hot young
doing
prince.
some hot young prince, the one who likes to drink and party and maybe sort of being involved with Jaskier, / Dandelion.
A little crushy crush.
Yes.
Yeah, a little crushy crush.
Yeah, he's
I he's hot. I
Radovid.
I guess I was wondering why the change to make him Vizimir's brother. And Lauren, you already talked about this some, and I was like, is it? Are we throwing Jaskier a bone here? We're just like, you need your own proper little arc that's not just hooking up with chicks at bars. Is that
Pretty much,
is
yeah.
that what we've
Yeah,
done?
that's it. Obviously, then, kind of last season, Dara was the one, the elf, was involved with Philippa and Dijkstra and Redania as a kind of spy network, and then Jaskier kind of hooks up with them, basically, because he thinks getting Ciri to Redania would be a good thing. So what it was meant to be was Ciri and Radovid in the books were betrothed, and then for whatever reason, Vizimir calls it off. So the thinking is now was Vizimir wanted to have Ciri as a kind of child bride kind of thing, because then he would have the Kingdom of Sintra, and that would make Redania the biggest force in the north. So I think making him his brother, it means they can make Radovid older, because in the books, he's roughly 13 when he becomes king. So I think the storyline they're doing here, it means it's an older, slightly more experienced Radovid, but he's also painted as an absolute idiot. He's apparently been given a host of different jobs in the kingdom and sucked at them all because he's a playboy. And then Vizimir decides, do you know what, Dijkstra, I'm going to have Radovid become my kind of like spy master as well. And Dijkstra obviously is like, absolutely not. So having him as slightly older, it means they can play him off Jaskier and kind of have that kind of romance going. So things get spicier with that as the season kind of goes on, which is interesting. But it's all a play, and Radovid is not, as you kind of touched on, what he seems. He's incredibly astute. He points out to Dijkstra, Vizimir's been meeting the Nilfgaards behind your back, don't you know? And as the spy master, you should have that all-seeing eye, and that catches Philippa and Dijkstra off guard, because obviously Philippa can become an owl and literally watch everything you're doing. She's one of the most powerful and oldest mages kind of kicking around. So having Radovid in there, it's a spanner in their works, and they're obviously two seasoned kind of court mages and spy masters. So having a young, hot guy that plays a lute and just kind of jostles around, messing everything up, it's a ruse to basically become this really powerful and devious character. But this is obviously his opening arc, so it builds. Obviously, it ends kind of with him gaining a little bit more power, but it's this is just the opening gambit for Radovid. He'll be a very, very present force to the rest of the seasons, but he's a much like Jaskier, he's not just a wee lovable rogue that gets introduced as, just it doesn't take 2 or 3 seasons for Jaskier to finally get an arc that's not shagging. You know what I mean? He's now got a different...
No, he's getting thrown out for shagging.
What is it?
He's getting thrown out for shagging.
Yeah, but I mean, part of the course with a bard, isn't it? So.
I like how that's working out for Radovid, that we're giving him as this playboy character who sucks at everything, and then of course his idiot older brother is like, well, you sucked at everything else so bad, I guess I'll give you an even more important job to suck at. Apparently, I don't know how you fail upwards that successfully. Even as a prince, that's some talent.
Royal men.
Yeah, and he's I guess he's now going to kind of butt heads with Dijkstra for sure, as to, Dijkstra is very, I don't want to say by the book, but he's traditional. He has the gravitas of a spy master, the turn on your scary face to threaten people kind of vibe. He can do all those things, and Radovid is not that. So if he's going to make a play for being a real spy master or sneaky or do some intrigue, it's going to be a very different style for sure.
It makes them a very powerful trio. Obviously, Philippa being a very powerful sorceress and a polymorph transformed into an owl, she's already doing a host of things behind everyone's back. Dijkstra, again, head of Redanian intelligence, very trusted, very experienced, and then you've got this idiot in the middle who just is just naturally a good spy. He's naturally good at manipulation, information gathering. But Jaskier points out, you have a mask. I can't see past this. What is this? There's nothing behind there. But of course, that in itself is a ruse, because he wants saying, well, invest in me and you'll see what's behind this mask. It's just more nothingness. But you'll see. Come and have a look. So it's, his storyline, that whole storyline with Redania and everything else is just going to get more and more interesting as it goes on. But there's a couple of cool bits involving the Redanian storyline that I think people will really enjoy, but it's very full frontal. Ugh. Definitely one you have to rewind and watch.
Mm. Are there other little lore change stuff that stuck out to you that you wanted to flag, or is it mostly like minor, unconcerning things? I'm sure there are people who have long lists of changes that things have been made.
Oh, my brain's kind of farted with that. Some of them are kind of Ciri related. I think there's a little bit more embellishment kind of around Ciri's journey and everything else, but that again, that's TV. There's
Yeah.
there's like a minimal monster quota, I would say, in this season, that kind of doesn't really reflect as much the books, and kind of it's more later in the season you see it really get a bit more true in some areas, but
Mhm.
no, on the whole, it's pretty true, and I think it's season 3. If you and I can appreciate for you, Molly, even having read the recaps, season 3 is one of those ones. If you haven't watched the first 2 seasons, but even if you have, if you've not done some wider reading, season 3 seems really weird. There's lots of things in season 3 that's going to be like, what does that mean? How is this relevant? And by the end of the season, by the end of the full season, but volume 1 and volume 2, you'll be like, okay, I absolutely understand what's going on, but there's so much of it that's just lore build up, but it's so fast paced because they've smashed the entirety of Time and Contempt
So
into
many groups.
it's not a particularly big book, like as you can see, it's maybe only like an inch and a half thick, like if that. It's not a long read, but the entirety of the book's in there, and you're like, ooh, it's quite a lot to consume a book in 8 and a bit hours. So it's yeah, it's just a bit crazy. I'd say episode 5 is probably my favourite, but takes the most embellishment, but also spins the most fun on
Okay.
on it all. Which am I allowed to? Sean, I'm just reading. Am I allowed to mention it? There's a big party and everyone's invited except Yasuke. But it's good fun. It's really, really well done. Cinematically, it's really well done. A really, really interesting watch. It's a filler episode to be sure, but one that's absolutely needed for just really quick lower kind of storytelling. It's a really, really sharp cut. And it's a real departure from it's a wee bit more reminiscent of season 1 where you were jumping about hundreds of timelines, but that's probably it's a really cohesive middle cliffhanger bit for the whole season. So it's good work. But no, it's a really long way of saying there's nothing else. That's much actually made me think.
That's okay. I appreciate you thinking through it. What about like production type stuff? This is not like my area of expertise. Obviously, we're talking about lore and the fantasy side of things, but do either of you guys have feelings about like either the visuals of the season or like costuming or like other sets, things like that?
Yes.
All right, Molly.
This morning.
Yeah, I moaned to Lauren a little bit about this.
All right, catch me up.
It's like I don't know how to say this without sounding like I'm being really picky, but I was expecting it to look better. Like I don't know how to explain it. There's like a slight level of like amateur dramatics to it. Like it's very like theatrical in its like costuming, I think, which is fine, right? But I'm like the wigs are very obviously wigs. Like it doesn't, and like the costumes are lovely. The costuming is gorgeous. But then like that first little spurt of blood came out where like Geralt like cut someone, and I'm like, oh. Like I thought the blood effects look very strange. I assume it's like that in the other 2 seasons as well, where it's sort of
much less gore. In the first half, certainly much less gore. There's a blood effect later in the season that was I audibly gasped and yelled. I was just like, "What the fuck!" But it was really in your face. But no, I would say compared to previous seasons, it's quite minimalistic. I think, like I know the scene you're talking about. The first couple of guys he fights, there's a decapitation, there's throat slitting, and it's like maybe we're so used to seeing like, yeah, but it was just kind of like, and you're like, oh,
it's like a little splash of blood, and I don't know. I guess Yeah, it's like just little spurts, and because it was quite stylized, I guess I was expecting it to maybe lean more like realism, like a la Game of Thrones or something, with like how bloody the blood is, but it's like very stylized effects.
Mm-hmm.
When I think, is it episode 1 or episode 2 with the monster in the maze? Which
Oh,
Yeah,
episode
in
was
that
that?
could
the
be.
labyrinth, the
Yep.
hedges.
Okay, yeah, that again, I was like, that's interesting looking. And I feel bad. It's like, it is very clearly like high production, but then there were little moments where I was like, oh, this is like not as like, I don't know, immersive as I was expecting it to be. Like, I can't stop staring at Yen's like gigantic purple contact
Oh,
lenses.
so right, see season 2, Henry Cavill's eyes were big bulbous yellow things, and it was the most off-putting and distractive thing. And I thought that as soon as they came on, I was like, they fixed his eyes. And then you're right, I was like, what have they done to Yennefer's eyes? They've made her eyes so much worse. It's so annoying. I think tonally, this season's felt very clean visually, even in
Mhm.
darker moments. And I get why this one is all, but ironically, you think, well, they're on the run, they're moving place to place to place, but then they are paying money because it's yen to stay in nicer places. So it's not quite, if it was Geralt alone, he would be dirty and smelly, and because that's how he's described in the books, isn't he? He's a dirty, smelly witcher that lives on the road and doesn't care. But now he's got this little cohort, and it's women, and they have certain needs, like Yennefer saying, can you've got all the wine, can I come in and get some? But with the
That's one of my
monsters,
certain needs as a woman.
Same.
Refill on wine, please.
the giant man has the wine,
Really
not the monsters were a disappointing design, and they were so, the jack pace was built up for that episode, and the battle was so short, and they were like, oh,
It was very short.
and Geralt kill
Yeah,
it.
it was short.
It's done. And then there's another monster, the Eshna, or I can't remember how you pronounce it later on. And again, really short battle, and you're like, oh,
Oh,
okay. And there's only a little short one, and I know they're focused on Ciri fighting the monsters, which is good in itself. Seeing Ciri kind of shaping it up with her Witcher skills, and the whole of season 2 was teach me how to protect myself, and she can do it now. That's rad. But they went so hard, I think, with monster design. And thinking back to the first episode of season 2 with Neville and the boar head and everything, and that was all, and the Bruxa, it was really dramatic, really. Just they got a contortionist in for that actress for that, so she was spinning herself in all these really weird, intricate, scary ways. And then we just had a CGI monster that died in like a 2-minute fight, and you're like,
2 minutes is generous. Yeah,
that was it.
it might have been.
I mean,
It might have been less than 120 seconds.
yeah, the costumes look great. I mean, especially Philippa and the mages, the sorceresses' costumes, like they're stunning. And that the whole point of them with the wigs being obvious. On the one hand, like, Geralt has now got grey hair, like they have dirtied him down, and I appreciate that because he was too clean in the first season. But with the mages, they're meant to click their fingers and be able to look different, and the drop of a hat. So them looking obviously overdone, I feel is stylistically the right choice.
Makes
But
sense.
then there's a scene with Ciri, and her hair's all out, and it's all blah, blah, blah. Now, keep in mind, she can't use her magic for fucking jack shit at this point. And all of a sudden, she's got a big, massive, intricate fishtail braid, and I was like,
Yeah.
so you had to flee for your life, but you had time
And
to
she's
do
got these
mini
tiny
braids and a
little braids that are
fishtail, and
all, yeah.
I was like, all right, fam, that makes sense. So
In particular, there's a part where Yennefer tells her to put this comb through your rat's nest of a hair, and I'm like, her intricately braided hair? Okay.
Right.
Sure. I think maybe the ends might be a little messy.
Yeah.
I don't know if I think it's a good thing or not. There's one thing in the first episode that just like immediately caught my attention. It was some of those forest scenes when they're deciding to split up after they've been moved a couple different times. They finally get found at Yarpen's place, and they're deciding like Geralt needs to go find Rience, and Yen is going to take Ciri to Aretuza. They're having this scene in the forest together, and something about it struck me as like kind of old Hollywood, like this like mixed set type situation. I was like, I don't know if it's something about the depth of field, if it's something about it. I can't, I'm not like 100% sure whether they have filmed this on a set or on location, or if it's one of those mixed situations where the foreground is a set and the back is one of those screens, right? but something about it just made me think of like really old Hollywood sets. And I don't know, I don't think that was like intentional. So I don't want to be say like, oh, like, wow, it's so nostalgic and so like intentional. Cause I really don't know. But something about that scene just like caught my eye. And then it was like bothering me for a while. And I didn't know what to think of it. But
It
I
was
don't
big
know.
Gandalf the White Wolf reveal. White Wolf? The White Gandalf the White Wolf. Gandalf the White Wizard in Lord of the Rings. I think that one, those were, I think it was Slovakia or Slovenia. That was the kind of tree ones were
Okay.
shot, and there was a lot in Ireland. But yeah, it gave me like the overarching feeling. I think they were trying to do is can't see the forest for the trees. Right? They're making these decisions that are so short sighted because we know going to Aratus is going to be the wrong choice. But whatever they or if the trees can't see it. But yeah, there was some of it. I know what you mean. A lot of it, there weren't as many kind of like over like. Can I actually touch on Lord of the Rings again? I don't know if you've went and rewatched them. I've got them on the 4K Blu-ray, and there's so many just big overhead shots of all this land, and you're like, what? This is like half the film. What? What is this? There wasn't as much of it in this season, much of it. There was some of it, and I'm like, what did I need this
You
for?
have to know they were on location.
You're
Look,
right.
look at my trees.
It's just, yeah, like when Jennifer takes Ciri back to where her home was, there's nothing there now. They're just standing in a field, and you're like, yeah, you're supposed to feel Ciri's underwhelm of why are we in a field? Why is this strange woman taking me to a field? But you're just kind of like, we get it. There's nothing here anymore, and we're going to have a flashback. We could have done that anywhere, but yeah, no, old.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The show is pretty.
it is.
The show is definitely pretty, but like I said, some choices like Yennefer's contacts were just like
I think
were
they're
just
CGI because that's what they did with Geralt. It was like post production, light up.
yeah,
eyes.
it was really throwing me off at one point. I just couldn't stop staring, and I was like, I really like it was making me uncomfortable. It was because it just looked wrong, but the costuming is gorgeous. The costuming is super pretty. In general, like a lot of it is very, very beautiful. I guess like just some of the like the style, like the stylistic choices weren't what I was expecting. I think I should have tempered my expectations a little bit
In what way?
in advance. Just again, like I said, like I was expecting some of the effects to not look like as mid as they did, right? Like you said, like the CGI, kind of like a CGI monster, and that was there for like all of like a minute and a half, and I wasn't like super wowed by it, I guess. I don't know. I was expecting, maybe I just have way too high expectations.
No, but
Maybe if I had been invested.
we
it
touched on
would
this
make
morning as well. There's a scene with Ciri fighting a monster, and she does like a jump down with her legs apart, so she would jump down so she could come on, do a death from above kind of thing, to attack it. And she jumps with her legs the exact width that should be apart, and it looks like she's been lowered rather than doing a jump, split your legs in the air, split stunt. And it just, I laughed. I was like, God, that's bad. Like, considering they've put so much money, and I think this is why they don't do as many blood effects, is Henry Cavill is so dedicated to the role and has done so much sword training, and obviously he's an elegant fighter. He's not meant to be a hack and slash. The focus is meant to be on, don't get me wrong, as much as there's no blood in that opening scene, there's the way he slits the throats and attacks them with like his beautiful sword play. Like it really is a tremendous dancer, I suppose, with that blade. But Ciri's, I was just like, God, that's just so ham. I don't know if it's CGI. I don't know if they put her in a harness. It was so rigid and flat as a performance. It just made me laugh out loud. I was like, that's shocking. I don't think our expectations are actually that low. I think we've just seen so many, and I guess older male actors to the point, but do their own stunts for it to, like Henry Cavill's there rolling around, doing jumps, doing everything. So to see that really poor execution of a jump, I was like, really?
Yeah.
So
For the most part, the choreography
that's
is
the word I was
very
looking for.
yeah, but for the most part, like the choreography is very good, I would say. Like you said, the way like Henry Cavill is very, very good in those like kind of fight scenes where he's swinging that big old sword around. Very, very good. Yeah, but there was just like a couple things that was like, my immersion. My immersion is
I
full.
am
My
urgent.
immersion. What do you think is like the general mood around Henry Cavill leaving? Like we've talked a little bit about how you think that transition is going to go, Lauren, and it's like maybe the best avenue they could have picked for it. Do you think that's sort of, I don't know, I guess like your attitude about him leaving, or like what you think the general fandom fan reaction is to approaching that transition?
So there's a lot of dead series, like dead game kind of thing. A lot of people now think no one will watch it, which will there be a drop in viewership from it?
It's a
Part of me
fourth
wants to
season of a
say
show.
yeah,
Of course there will be.
but at the same time, everyone will want to see how it compares, so it will draw people in out of sheer curiosity. I
Mm,
think they've played down Geralt this season. It's not. It doesn't feel like the same. Doesn't feel like the same Henry. I want to say like that. This is a pivotal
mm.
transition for Geralt as a character. Geralt is no longer Geralt of Rivia the Witcher. He's now Geralt of Rivia the Dad Witcher. You know, it
Yeah.
is a good time for that transition to happen. And while lore wise, you're ripping from I think it's 2 books ahead to bring that storyline in. It's something that for television it can be worked around. You know, it doesn't always have to include everything from the books, as we know. We've all seen how it works with Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings and everything else, but I am disappointed Henry's leaving, and I feel like they did him a little bit dirty in season 3. Like he isn't as present, but again in the book he isn't as present right now. This is a
Mm.
very much like everyone thinks because we've played an RPG with him as the titular Witcher for 3 games. You know, it's all about Jerry and his adventures. The books, there's so much going on with Ciri, there's so much going on with Yen. Like, the next couple of books are so Ciri focused, and a lot of it's retellings, so that Geralt, you know, appears in different places, with everything else. So it is a
Mm.
good time to do the switch. It canonically it would fit to have a different Geralt for a different Geralt. But I mean, I liked Henry Cavill's portrayal. But then when they announced it was Henry Cavill, those opening kind of shots with the crap wig drinking a potion, and he was kind of
Oh
skinny, and I
yeah.
was like, I hate this. This is the worst decision I've ever made. Then as soon as they put him out in that Witcher armour, and I was like, I retract everything negative I've ever said about Henry Cavill. So I need to keep an open mind. Like it's disappointing because it's a, you know, much like, but there again, I wish they dubbed Doug Cockle onto Henry Cavill's voice, because that's my Geralt, or that's the Geralt I have tattooed. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
I'm just getting betrayed left, right, and centre. But hey, a third Jerry, how bad can it be? But I think
Change is hard.
the change is hard for this parasocial relationship I have between a fictional character and then the actors that play them.
No, I get it, right? I think a big part of it as well just comes from how much like Henry Cavill is like how passionate he is about the specific role, and
Yeah.
how much he has researched the role, and he's played the game, and he there's a lot that he knows about the character and the universe outside of the TV show, right? Like he did his homework.
Mm-hmm.
He turned the fuck up. He had done the homework. He knew like who Geralt was. He knew Geralt's place in like the Witcher universe. And I think that is a reason why a lot of people, that like kind of plays into why people are sad
It's the
to see him
commitment.
go, right?
It's absolutely the
Yeah.
commitment to the bit. And is Liam going to go and read the books to bring that to it? I mean, I don't know. Again, having interviewed some of the cast, and they weren't familiar with the books, weren't familiar with the games, they just liked the fantasy universe and everything else. And you forget that not all actors will absolutely commit to the role by studying all of the material. And I would like to see that with Liam, but I mean, I can't tell him what to do. Nobody can tell him what to do. He can just walk up and be
No, I
Jerry.
think you should
But
tell Liam Hemsworth what to do. I
Hemsworth,
as
read the books. So
read the books, Liam. As someone who doesn't have much of a stake in this, I'm excited. I like Liam Hemsworth quite a lot. I was a big Hunger Games girly when I was
Oh,
a
sure.
teenager, right? And he was in the Hunger Games, and I really liked him in the Hunger Games. So I'm excited to see him in The Witcher. I think he'll be a good Witcher.
I
I
think
think
it'll
he'll
be
be a
good.
good Witcher. Yeah.
It's like I said, it's not gruff daddy Geralt we're going to get anymore. It's a softer, slightly different one. So I mean, maybe he'll bulk up, maybe he won't. But as I say, it's a different Geralt that's going to be there now from the next season anyway, both in the story and as an actor. So changing him up would be good. I think it's just people expected, because he's going to be older, and obviously Liam Hemsworth looks younger. I think they expected to go back to some of the original possibilities and go for an older guy. But much like the sorceresses, they age very, very slowly. There's no need for him to suddenly look 90. You know,
Yeah.
I think canonically just now he's meant to be about 50 or 60, maybe a wee bit older. Henry Cavill doesn't look 60, I think we can all agree. So
True. I think I'm just somewhere in the middle, neither here nor there. I mean, I have really enjoyed Henry Cavill. He clearly studied the blade, like literally, and the video games, right? You know? But yeah, I'm open to Liam. We'll see how he does. I'm sure he can also be an action man. Let's see. So we have, at this point, people have gotten the opportunity to watch this first volume of episodes, the first 5. Lauren, I don't want to put you too much on the spot or make you give anything away more than you are supposed to or that you know, but do you have any book stuff from the time of Contempt that you are excited to maybe see, at least in the next volume of this, that you feel confident are going to show up, or even like further on just from other book reading, even if you want to like project out into season 4 where you can't possibly know anything?
So Ciri's arc takes a big turn kind of later in the book, and she ends up alone, and it is alone for the first time, and she doesn't get rescued. She doesn't get rescued. It's very much a battle against her wits, and it's here that she finds quite a lot of her power. She's trapped in a desert, right, which Vesemir, Big Daddy Vesemir's called it a frying pan, and she can only use herself to kind of get out. And the whole story with that is where she'll rediscover kind of herself, and that she's got like how powerful her power is. Because obviously, all she's seen just now is, oh, you're a child of the Elder Blood, and the elves want you, and the kings want you, and people, the Wild Hunt want you, and they're going to take your blood, or they're going to manipulate you to rule. And you know, she's meant to be the bringer of death. Triss obviously had that journey with her in season 2, where it's like you're going to be the ender of worlds and all that. So that's quite a lot to have as a teenage girl, you know, sitting on your shoulders.
more than most of us have dealt with, for sure.
Quite a lot. But the journey through the Korath Desert is one for Ciri, where it really self-discovery and a lot of danger, and she'll face off with her past, with her potential future, and it culminates in her kind of making very big decisions about her magic, very stalwart, that will affect the next couple of books or the next couple of seasons. It might be one that they only draw out for half a season. I could see it maybe being a season-long thing, kind of like how they really drew out Yen losing her powers. But she makes some big decisions, and she'll join. She'll embark on a path that I think for viewers will be a bit more of a blind side. It would be not obvious as a teenager, but for kind of viewers and if people pick up the book and read, she just completely deviates from the destiny that Geralt and Yen have tried to push her along. And then the whole thing of her, obviously, she's a child of destiny, she's a child of surprise. So it's no surprise that she decides, I'm just going to fuck off and do my own thing. I'm just going to go over here and be someone else and do someone else. So that was good to consider that that's going to be coming up, that we're going to see this transformative, like that's the transition and transformations, the theme of season 3. So to see where Ciri decides for the first time, really, she decides where she's going to go, that'll be very interesting to watch.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing, just from the volume we've watched so far, like Geralt and Yennefer with those parental attitudes, very much pushing this young, headstrong girl into a place where she's going to want to take her own control and make her own decisions. And yeah, she's starting to do that, and it sounds like she's going to get more of that than she bargained for, potentially. More solo decision making than anybody could possibly want.
It's The Witcher. There's always a grey area. That's how it rolls.
Let's see. Did I miss anything big that you wanna send off on, Lauren? Any witchering thoughts before we go into volume 2?
I guess there's some redemption, you know. Kahir and Fringilla pop back up, our old favourites from season 2. Everything is not rosy for them. They have to make some kind of big decisions still about Emir, who I feel has a big presence in this one. It's more Nilfgaard, though. This is now we're moving.
Yeah, we did not talk about Emir at all.
No.
Sorry.
It's still that Nilfgaard is the threat. This is the threat of the Black Army being on your doorstep. It's the threat of what they pose as opposed to him. But there's the more overarching sense now of how very dangerous this individual is, because it's no longer Kahir as the bad man, as the Black Rider, City calls him. Then it's no longer just him and Fringilla trying to pull the strings.
Mm-hmm.
It's now the big bad's there. How much of a threat is he? And he's a very... They're setting him up to be the formidable character, but him and Nilfgaard are just this constant looming threat in the background. And
Mm-hmm.
the whole season, like, while we've got this transition going on, the rest of everyone else's transition is understanding that Nilfgaard's on your doorstep. What deals are you going to pull to protect yourself or protect your kingdom or protect Aretusa or protect whatever else? And it's squeaky bum time, as they would say, for everyone else of making big decisions about who are we trusting, and mistakes will no doubt be made, because no one can be trusted. This is the Witcher universe. Everyone has an agenda, so it's he's ruthless like the I can't actually remember the actor's name. I was looking at him before I joined in. Now I can't remember his name. He's very much still portraying him as the kind of boogeyman version of Emir, where it's he's very exacting in his commands and he has no mercy, and that's Nilfgaard. So that whole premise of the North is about to be obliterated, and Temeria and everything, what's happening with Scoia'tael, that's all about to come into play, and it's all scary, scary times for everyone else.
Yeah. Thank you, Lauren, for coming in and being our Witcher expert, for brushing us up on the lore, preparing us for second volume coming in July, end of July, right?
July 29th, I want to say. 27th.
July 29. Okay. Oh, so yeah, just about like exactly a month later, nearly, from the drop of this first volume. Cool. So everybody has a chance to catch up if you haven't already. I've got a couple more episodes to watch. Mollie has us to listen to talking about other episodes, probably, whether or not you actually get into them. We will see. Yeah, so enjoy those first 5 episodes, and the next drop when we get there, good luck to Siri. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.